Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of OutBüro Voices, where we have engaging conversations with LGBTQ professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders. And today we have Chris Rollins. He is hailing from the Big Apple, New York City, here in the United States. And I'm going to, as usual, let him begin talking about himself and his history and getting into what he does. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Well, awesome, Chris. So again, as we could start out, give a little bit of information about kind of your career path so far.
Yeah, well, I'll start sort of personally. Growing up here in New York, just an hour north of New York City, I was the youngest of three boys. Had a pretty active household, although my two older brothers were much closer in age. So I kind of spent my childhood watching them fight and get at each other's necks and run around the house. And I was always sort of the observer and peacekeeper. But as I grew up, I was super athletic, got really into sports. Golf became my big love when it came to sort of hobbies and passions. So I spent a lot of time in my childhood growing up on the golf course and really working towards what ultimately led me to playing in college for a Division I program. So I guess college was sort of my first experience really thinking about, like, what do I want to do in the world, right? Where do I want to go? Who do I want to be? What am I going to make of all this? And so I really didn't know what I wanted to do. But after taking a few courses in psychology, I was really interested in this field of organizational development, which is really focused on people and culture and leadership and team building within organizations. And so I actually ended up, instead of going directly into a field of like HR or org dev, I ended up in a sales job right out of college. And so I spent the first 3 years of my career doing the grind, prospecting every day, cold calling every day, monthly quotas, demos, closing business. And it was not at all what I expected to be doing when I graduated from college. But it was probably the best thing I could have done to start my career because, as you know, as a business owner, having skills to sell yourself, sell your business, build relationships is really, really important. But after sort of going through that, I was like, okay, this is like square peg in a round hole. Like, I am not cut out for sales for the rest of my life. So I transitioned into account management, where I was really hitting my stride and building relationships with clients, building trust with my clients, and sort of rose through the ranks in my last job within the account management team. And finally, I had an opportunity to transition into organizational development, which is what I had always wanted to do. And so after a bit of time, I actually landed this executive role leading organizational development for eMarketers, about a 150-person company. And it was exactly what I'd sort of visioned for myself when I graduated from college. Except when I was doing the job, I was like, actually, this isn't what I want to be doing. This is, while it's great in many ways, I don't feel like I was put on this earth to be a head of HR. And I feel like I want to contribute and have an impact in a very different way. So I sort of entered this like, oh shit moment of, if I spent my entire career getting to this place I thought I wanted to be, and it's not in fact where I want to be, then I need to think differently about the next, step that I take. So instead of asking myself, well, what do I want to do? And what job out in the world is going to make me feel fulfilled and make me feel the way I want to feel? I said, let me first flip that around and say, who am I? What is my purpose? And what can I do to really honor that? And so I decided to leave my job at the end of 2019 and took a few weeks to really reflect and think about what it is that really motivates me. What is it that inspires me? Who am I? What's my purpose? And so I actually went to this coffee shop every single day in Harlem, just deeply caffeinating, reflecting, journaling, doing all the research. And I sort of had this aha moment one day when it all sort of came together. And I realized that my purpose is about holding safe space so that people have the courage to find and live their truth. And I realized that it was so deeply connected to my own experience, coming out in college, and the fear and the shame that I, as many of us do in our community, experienced coming out and just wanting a safe space to be myself. And so as I reflected on that also throughout my career, the moments when I felt my best, when I felt like I was really contributing in a powerful way and having a meaningful impact, that was sort of the essence of what I was doing, was creating safe spaces for people to live into their truth.
Okay, well, awesome. Well, let's unpack a little bit about that as far as the whole journey, because most people don't get their ideal job right out of college, and you kind of had the experience of going into sales, which is, for so many a typical first-time job. But what I like, what you eventually did, is reflecting, taking the time to really think about what you're doing and leveraging that opportunity, leveraging that learned skill on, and recognizing that, yes, in every job, in every entrepreneur's life, and every profession's life, you are a salesperson. Because even if your title isn't sales, even if you're a project manager, you're still selling. You're having to interact with stakeholders in the organization or with clients as a project manager. You're having to sell the ideas. You're having to constantly negotiate and so forth. So I think having that sales role was very important for you. And, so I think it's very important for all people to learn those skills in whatever capacity that they learn them in, but understanding you're always selling. I mean, even with, if you have a life partner, you're even selling what you're going to do this weekend, right? Are you going to go to this restaurant or that restaurant? Are you going to go to movies? Are you going to go to a beach? Are you going to go to an estate sale? What are you negotiating for your own life? And I think that's really important for people to know. And there was one of our recent posts called the Cold Calling Queen. And so if anyone out there would like to learn more about sales, she actually has a book. Go check that episode out. And she has some books. She has great free resources, even on her website, that doesn't cost you anything, and you don't have to buy her book in order to take them and so forth. So I really kind of appreciate that you recognize that. And, we all also have to take sometimes whatever job's available, but looking at the positive of it, and looking at it as a stepping stone. So,
Yeah.
so good for you for that.
Thanks. Yeah, it was just to paint the picture. I was terrified of selling. I mean, absolutely. Actually, the interview to get that sales job, they had a group interview to start, and part of that interview was standing up in front of a room and trying to sell the room on a passion of yours. And my heart was like leaping out of my chest because I was so nervous. And obviously, I ended up getting the job, but the office space at the time was completely open. Our desks were sort of like facing each other in a circle. And we were expected to just pick up the phone and cold call businesses in front of everyone else. And I was like the kid growing up who like didn't even want to call to like order dinner for the family. I was like, someone else do that. I don't want to be on the phone. So I really had to stretch outside my comfort zone. And actually the first few like weeks of doing this, I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to go lock myself in a conference room and like practice on my own. And then I'll come out and do it with the team. But now, what it taught me over time was when I was applying for jobs, I was writing cold emails to people. I was reaching out to people without any sort of connection and having no fear around that stuff. And as you know, it serves you well later in your career.
Oh, absolutely. And then you mentioned, taking that time to reflect. One big, I guess I wouldn't say big balls, big gonads, but just that you recognized that you wanted to take some time and pause and really get back to your passion. There's another episode, probably just before this, with a career coach. Name escapes me off the top of my head, but we'll put a link in down below. And we talked about that as well. It's getting down and understanding who you are as a person and what drives you. And looking at your career in again, in that stepping stone fashion, is like, if you can possibly think about the career in a strategic manner, so that you're like, okay, this isn't the role that I want for my life, but it's going to give me the skills that would be useful, again, like a sales role, like a marketing role, whether that's an intern or something else. And I like what you did, is taking that time, writing it down, as you called it, journaling. I think that's very good, critical, important, and so forth for you to do. Whenever I was thinking about my next goal, after a 17-year divorce and so forth, and remodeling the house, and thinking like, all right, what am I going to do in this chapter of my life? I don't want to go back to my 70 to 80% of time, commuting and traveling for, corporate clients. I took about 3 months while I was working on that, remodeling that house. And I sat down every day for about 3 months. I took Post-it notes and just wrote down on one idea or one thought on a Post-it note. And so it was like, for example, wanting to extend, what I've been doing already now in this coming April 2021, my group on LinkedIn is 13 years old. So it's like, all right, I've already invested in that. I'm obviously passionate about that. So, the LGBT professional and entrepreneur community, and I've owned different businesses in the past, but I want something that's internet based. I can do it from anywhere, and not only a local market, So I really can appreciate what you've done, because I've done it myself. And I will just say I was a few years older than you whenever I did that particular version of it. So for our audience out there, take those, little bit of lessons from several of the career coaches that I've had on. Go back and take a look at those episodes. They also mentioned doing something like that. And now, Chris is providing that kind of guidance and what's worked for him. And I've shared in numerous, and like just now, how I've done that as well. So, so great that you've done that. And so talk about what that kind of, what came out of that.
Yeah. So I guess the next part of that story is, okay, so now I've figured out, I don't like to say figured out, because it's sort of always there. I think your purpose and why you exist is always there. I'd like to say I've connected more powerfully with my purpose, because there was sort of, over time, I just had this sense of like something that was sort of pulling me in a direction, but I didn't know exactly what it was until I finally connected more powerfully with it. And so I said, okay, this feels like me. My purpose is to create safe space so that people have the courage to find and live their truth. And so what can I do to bring that to life? And I literally said, well, centered on that notion, I could become a therapist. I could become a teacher. I could become a coach. And that's what I ultimately did, because coaching is the part of my job that I loved the most. I loved the one-on-one connection with people, with leaders, helping them to become stronger, better, more confident leaders. And so I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to build a coaching business centered on my purpose and my story. It's very personal to me. That's my motivation. That's my drive. I'm not getting into this because it's just another career path to take. I've done the work to really understand who I am, to then take a more intentional step forward. And that's really a lot of how the work with my clients begins, whether they're middle of their career, later in their career, well-established leaders, is taking the time to actually connect more powerfully with their purpose. So they know, like, why am I doing this? Why am I showing up every day to lead this team? Because as we witnessed in 2020, when things go to shit, like, you got to realize, why you're doing this and why you're going to come back tomorrow. And if you're not centered on your purpose, it's a lot harder to stay resilient in the face of tough challenges. And to sort of break down this idea of purpose, I was really inspired by the work of people like Simon Sinek, who sort of breaks it down into two components. One is your contribution as a person, and one is the impact that you want to have. So that was sort of part of what I was asking myself was, what's the unique contribution that I can offer the world? And what impact do I want to have that's meaningful to me? So the contribution, as I reflected, was this idea of creating safe space, because as I got feedback from people, as I reflected on who I was, I have this sort of calming demeanor. People feel really comfortable coming to me with some of their more intimate challenges and things. And so creating that space then allows them to really show up more fully as who they are. And how I translate that into my business when I'm coaching leaders is every leader, and it's funny, I was talking to some friends about this recently, this idea of coming out. So as a gay man, I had to come out to the world, as many of us do in the community. But I think everyone in some way is sort of hiding a part of who they are and has to come out in some way. And so as I think about my leadership development, it's helping people kind of come out and live into the truth of who they are, so that they can lead more powerfully and more confidently from a place that is grounded in who they are and not who the leader over there is that they want to be like.
I could not agree more. And, when you do have someone in a leadership position, and whatever kind of leadership position that is, that could be the leader of a house cleaning team. It could be a leader of a project, being a project manager. It could be a divisional manager. It could be a CEO of a major corporation. And when you are yourself, authentic, and people sense that, people can sense when you're being overly guarded, and that creates a sense of distrust. Mm-hmm. And so when whatever level of leadership you happen to be, when you're showing your truth and your vulnerabilities, that gives space to say it's okay for everyone in the organization to do that. And, we're not all great at everything, right? And so, but not only being open about, hey, this isn't my best skill set. This isn't my best thing. However, all skills can be learned. But sometimes what I have experienced is sometimes people will think, oh, well, I was hired to do this, but there's this portion I really suck at. And sometimes they'll just try to hide it, band-aid it, and so forth, and then end up sucking even worse because they don't have the vulnerability and the courage to ask for help and seek out advice and then get that information to learn that, right? And so it's very detrimental to the organization as a whole. So it has an untrusting environment, and plus you might have people in the organization who are not working optimally because they might actually need help, but a culture is, no, you have to be perfect and perfect all the time. And so anyway, it creates this toxic environment. And so I can totally relate where having a safe space isn't just about coming out, which is obviously a portion of it, but having that safe space that people feel comfortable in asking for help in whatever capacity that is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to when I was in that leadership role in the corporate space and building my team and getting to know my team members. And, as someone who is like really passionate and about helping people grow and develop and do what they love, that was what I was, kept having conversations around with my team. And once that trust and the relationship was established, where my team felt safe coming to me with some of these, challenges they were having or things they didn't feel comfortable with, that's when the real magic happens, because I can share the things that I'm not particularly good at doing and the things that I particularly don't love doing, and find ways to empower and elevate people on my team who actually kind of fill in the gaps for the things that I don't love doing or I'm not great at. And so one example was I was sort of working with someone on my team to do more like analytics around our like recruitment and onboarding and people data. And she, agreed to do the project. But I think she agreed to do the project because her boss was like presenting this opportunity. But finally, it sort of came out and we had a more like in-depth conversation about her development. She's like, I hate data. I hate the analytics. I don't want to do this. And I was like, thank you for telling me that, because this person over here like really loves it. And we can shift things around and job craft a little bit to make the whole team stronger and better as a whole.
Oh, nice. I like that example. Yeah. This person over here loves it and it isn't doing it. You hate it, but let's swap those roles and then you're both going to be happy and enjoy your work. That's awesome.
The intersection of like what you're good at and what you love to do, I think those are two so important things for anyone to know about themselves, whether you're early in your career or a big time leader in an organization. Because I'm a big proponent of focusing on your strengths and honing in on the things that you're good at and that you love, and finding ways not to ignore the things that you're not good at, but to find other people that can sort of fill in the gaps for you too.
Yes, great. Awesome. And so now that you've created your coaching business, let's talk about more, get in on it and talk about its focus, and just so folks are really clear.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess big picture, as someone who was leading organizational development, overseeing talent management, people and culture for 150 person business, what I realized is it's a really tough job, not only because of all the things you have to do, but because it's extremely lonely, it's isolating, and it can be very emotionally draining. Because as that person who's like representing culture and creating a space where people hopefully feel safe and can thrive and feel supported, you are taking on a lot of emotional weight from people. I mean, think about 2020 and the sudden shift to remote work, the murder of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, and all of the change that was happening within organizations as a result of that. And it was pretty much, the CEO, but really the head of people that was sort of responsible for figuring out what to do with all this, right? And so that's a lot of responsibility to bear that you're not prepared for. So I use those as some examples, big examples, to display why this job leading people and culture in an HR role is so demanding and can be isolating, because there's a lot of information also that you're holding on to that is confidential, that you can't even share with your team because you need to kind of protect everyone. So my business now is really focused on supporting those leaders who are so focused on supporting everyone else, because consistently, day after day, these big-hearted, purpose-driven, forward-thinking people leaders are creating this vision for this organization and trying to build an inclusive, diverse, equitable culture. But no one's really showing up for them. They don't really have a safe space. So I want to be and becoming that safe space for those leaders to focus on their own growth and their own development, because really it's them focusing on everyone else.
Okay. All righty. I get the picture there.
Yeah.
And so you are a supporter of those who support.
Yeah, I mean, they're exactly. I am a coach, an advocate, a supporter of the people leaders who are doing so much for everyone else and not investing enough time and energy into their own growth and development and career. So, so that's what really excites me.
Okay. And so I know this is fairly new for you, but do you have kind of a general process or methodology that you have come up with to kind of implement with new clients?
Yeah, great question. So before getting into the process, I first want to talk about sort of big picture philosophy, I guess you could say, about leadership, which is so much leadership development, in my opinion, is about, how do I become more of the ideal leader? There's like so many books, so many theories, so many models of leadership, the 7 traits of like the top leaders, and you need to have these traits, right? So much is focused on how do you become more of this ideal version of a leader. And true to my purpose, I really believe that the best leader that you can be is one that really allows you to live your truth. And in order to do that, you have to know who you are more than you ever have before. And so sort of like getting into my process, that all begins with awareness. And it starts with purpose, values, essence. So this idea of like really what's at the core of who you are, what shows up when you do, what are sort of the traits that make you really special and unique. And so we work together to get really clear on the core of who you are as a starting point to then figure out how do you show up as the best leader that you can be. So the first step is awareness. The second step is alignment. And so alignment is this ongoing process of figuring out what is it that you want, what's getting in the way, and then coaching you through a process of inquiry and reflection and questions to help break through on the limiting beliefs or mindsets that might be holding you back. And that's an ongoing process of, hey, I'm dealing with imposter syndrome. Like when I show up, I'm sort of holding back. So then I'll work with my clients to break through on that. And then the third step is activation. So there's awareness, alignment, activation, and activation is actually what is sort of showing up on the outside. So the things that you're doing, the things that you're saying, the things that you're feeling, those are sort of outside of the core of who you're being. And so as we work through insights to help break through on some of the stuff that's in the way, then my clients commit to taking action to help them think, feel, and act in different ways that will make them show up more true to who they are.
Okay, sounds good. And just out of curiosity, I know a coach is not a therapist, but sometimes getting into who you are and or kind of negative mental patterns and so forth, might require a little bit more So just, curious and or advice on, have you ever recommended, and if not, might be a good idea to maybe partner with other services, other professionals. You wouldn't necessarily be the psychoanalyst, right? But sometimes people need a little bit more in just saying that, you know, oh, you're dealing with a very difficult divorce, or something like that. Maybe you should, see, a professional counselor to help you on that. So, um, I don't know if that's come up yet for you, but
Yeah, I think one of the responsibilities of a coach is to know, sort of ethically and morally, what are the types of things that you should or should not be coaching around. And, in all my work with my clients, I haven't had any situation come up where I'd said, oh, I think you really need to go talk to a therapist. But, I have therapist friends and people in my network who I meet with regularly, who we've become sort of referrers to each other in that case. And so, if I have a client that's coming to me and is presenting like serious signs of depression or sort of ideation around hurting themselves or other things like that, then that's obviously a trigger for me to take a different course of action. But I create agreements with all of my clients before we start working together. And one of them is around confidentiality. And so we agree that everything that we talk about is confidential. And one of these sort of caveats to that is that if I perceive that there's something that we talk about that sort of throws that flag up around maybe this should be handled by a psychotherapist, then we agree to take action around that. And I, of course, wouldn't do that without their permission or without letting them know. But I sort of set that expectation up front.
Gotcha. And just one a kind of shout out to an episode that's released just about 2 weeks ago from the release of this video. Actually, I'm editing and uploading right now. Is a really good book on resilience. You mentioned that earlier. And it's from a journalist who wrote a book about it and has interviewed very notable people. And he also provides a free online workshop on resilience. So we'll have a link down there below since you brought that into the conversation as well. Just like that Queen of Cold Calling has some free resources. So, it might be good to check out those because they might be tools that you could, recommend to your clients on, and for all of you, of course, out there listening. So who is your kind of ideal target? Your ideal client, your ideal, customer base?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So my sort of home run client, the people that I love working with the most are leaders in the people and culture and talent space. So like a head of people, a director of people and culture, VP of HR, who are also part of the LGBTQ plus community. So the intersection of LGBTQ plus folks and people. And it's really an amazing group of people. I think most people who get into the world of HR, people and culture have big hearts. They have a lot of empathy. They really care about helping others. And then to sort of intersect that with people in the LGBTQ plus community, you have a ton of diversity. There's just this sort of inherent, drive towards inclusion and belonging. And I really want to show up for those people who deserve it, who are doing so much for everyone else, and not enough for themselves. And I just started working with a client who, it's funny, before we started working together, she had contacted me about building a whole management program for her leadership teams. And when that had to get on pause for other priorities, I said, well, what are you doing to take care of your own growth and development? And she's like, not really a lot. I hadn't really thought about it until now. And so fast forward a bit, and she committed to working with me, and her company's supporting her through that. And she said, I'm so excited. I feel like I'm finally doing something for myself. And I was like, yes, that is exactly the sentiment that I'm hearing from other people. And that's exactly why I'm here doing this work, because you finally need to do something for yourself. So that's really exciting to me. And those are the people that I love working with. And just a note on sort of finding your ideal client. It's, as I think back to when I was starting my business, I think, as is common for a lot of entrepreneurs, is to say, well, my product's for everyone. Anyone could benefit from working with me. And maybe that's true, but really honing down your focus into a specific population of people that you really can relate to, I think is a pretty effective way to grow your business.
Well, absolutely. And, taking a proven business model for all current and or budding entrepreneurs out there, taking a proven business model and niche focusing it is a recipe for success, because, you can't sell or market to the whole world. I mean, unless you're Coca-Cola, right? Or something like that. So, because if you don't niche down and your message is for, so broad that it's for everybody, it becomes white noise. But when you're hyper focused, you know exactly who your target audience is on multiple layers. You're able to be more effective, use your communication and your marketing content more effectively, because it's going to be riddled in with all the things that are triggered for that particular person. And of course, it also helps search engine optimization, so people can organically find you. And, that's like what my 5-second elevator pitch for OutBüro is, it's like Glassdoor.com and LinkedIn met, fell in love, and had a queer baby. Mm-hmm. So if you get what LinkedIn is and you get what Glassdoor.com is already, oh, it's that, but for the LGBTQ community. Oh, okay, I get that. So it helps in messaging, and it again helps you in reaching out, because, gosh darn it, if I get another email on LinkedIn that's about web development and so forth, and it's just noise, I don't even look at them. As soon as I see it's delete, 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 delete. And there are a lot of coaches in the world. I've already have interviewed numerous. Out of my current 60 episodes, probably 10% at least, if not 15, are coaches of some sort. They do different coaching and focuses on different targets. So, you don't want to be, as a coach, white noise. You don't want to be relegated to those web app developer emails, right? Or SEO and, SEO emails that everyone gets on LinkedIn. I don't even know why they think they're effective. So I really can appreciate and what you're doing on honing in, and honing in, gives you that time also to honing in on your target audience. Also gives you that time to really practice your craft and get really good at it. And then if at such point in the future that you're like, oh, okay, I'm sure if after a while, if someone contacted you because they were a referral or something, but happened to not be part of the LGBT community, they're just an ally, I'm sure you'd be happy to take them on as a future client, right?
As I do, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but so it's not being exclusive, but it's having your messaging and your focus. And, If someone if someone were to say, "Hey, I have this X widget and everyone can do it," I'm not the only one saying this, folks. YouTube after YouTube and article after article says, you're just doomed for failure. And I can guarantee, if you're a business, if you're looking for investors, they're going to really look at that quite negatively. Because what that says is you don't know your audience is what that says. So
I think the point of kind of having a focus is it kind of hammers home the importance of having your story and why you do what you do, and being able to share your story and why you show up to do your business and why it's important to you. I think that helps sort of bridge a gap and build trust and sort of reach out your hand and say, I'm sharing a part of who I am. This is my experience. And people then relate to parts of that and say, oh yeah, I've been through that too, or I know what you're saying. And it becomes meaningful, generous work that you're doing, not just sort of filling a job role because it exists. And I think the most successful coaches, at least that I've known, have a very clear story, a very clear purpose as to why they're doing what they're doing.
Absolutely. And that connecting and resonating with that target audience is just key, no matter what business you're in. So
I just wanted to share one other thought on this idea of niching down on your focus, but also kind of creating room for other folks that come in. So one of my recent clients was not sort of my ideal client, but she's actually one of my favorite clients. And one of the things that she said to me, and this is the first time she ever worked with a coach, she said, I sort of expected when we were working together that you were going to tell me like the way that I was supposed to change who I was to like fit in better and to get along and to be happier in my space. And she's like, what's happened is quite the contrary. And you empowering me to be more of who I am, to live into my truth, to lean into the quirkiness of what I bring to the table, to really identify my values. And it was really reassuring and just sort of inspiring to hear that, again, this person wasn't even part of the LGBTQ plus community, but it's about living her truth, right? It's about living into the things that make her who she is, and finding ways to make that really work for her in her career.
Awesome. Good example there. Well, where do people best find you?
Yes. So I invite people to connect with me on LinkedIn, but you can visit my website, which is chrisrollins.me. And I love building my network on LinkedIn. If you're part of the HR and LGBTQ plus communities, I've started a group specifically for you. It's called Queer, Queehr. And if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll find how to get LinkedIn there, and I would love for you to join.
Awesome. And of course, we'll have links in the show notes, as well as everyone. You'll be able to also connect with Chris on OutBüro.com. And there is also a group on OutBüro for HR professionals. So join OutBüro.com today. Complete at least 30% of your profile to unlock all of the features, and then you'll be able to join groups. Well, Chris, I know we are coming up on our time. Any last thoughts or words before I let you go for your day?
I just want to, I think, acknowledge you for what you've built and the community that you've grown over time, and serving the LGBTQ plus community in a really special way. And just thank you for doing what you do and showing up every day to do this work and creating the space for me to share my story.
Sure. And it is every day, literally 365 for now 13 years. But now luckily focused on, because I don't own LinkedIn, unfortunately, Microsoft does. So again, and, creating OutBüro, just, so you're aware, is, again, I don't control LinkedIn. So they've given features, they've taken away features. And although I appreciate all of the 46.8 thousand global members in that group, it just doesn't have the real ability to connect and engage, and also in a safe space, because I find people aren't as open on a platform like LinkedIn. So that's what drove me. That's part of my purpose and why, is to create that safe space for all LGBTQ professionals and entrepreneurs, and providing the group ability so that people can niche into geographic locations, industry focus such as HR. There's also an entrepreneurial group called Out Startup or Out Biz Boss. I think I've not changed the logo or something, but there's numerous groups. There's also a Out Transaction group for people who identify as trans. So I encourage you and everyone out there to join. I know you're already on it, but encourage you, speaking to our audience, to really take a look at OutBüro. It's free to join. Just complete at least 30% of your profile to unlock all the features. I do that. It's not trying to twist your arm, but it's one way to ensure that it's not a ghost town, and to eliminate spammers, so that you can't even comment on something unless you've completed that much of your profile. And that's to ensure that, bots out there don't join and then spam the group, because it is about quality. Well, Chris, I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dennis.
Awesome. And thank you, everyone, for staying tuned to this episode. On whatever application or website that you are viewing or listening to this to, please click that subscribe or follow button to ensure that you stay informed of all the new releases coming up. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you on OutBüro.com. Bye-bye.